Let's take a listen to a mix. This isn't a bad mix. It's balanced, it's clean. There really isn't anything wrong with it, yet it's not moving me in any way, shape, or form. Now let's listen to this mix. This mix is a lot more exciting. It has a specific sonic viewpoint, and it's making me feel something. The biggest misconception I feel that's out there when it comes to mixing is that great mixes are the absence of problems. We are removing mud, we're removing masking, we're removing resonant frequencies, we're removing. The absence of problems doesn't mean the presence of magic.
Illusion, Michael.
Essentially, as a mixer, we have a choice. We can be a chaser or we can be a builder. A chaser is doing nothing but running around finding problems in the mix, feeling that everything that is inside every track has to be cleaned. We collect plugins. We feel that we have to go through routine types of processing. For a very long time early on in my mixing career, I felt that I was a chaser. I was just collecting recipes, following the way everybody told me to do things. This is why your kick drum sucks. This is a problem with this. This is a problem with that. And I never really felt like my mixes were getting over the hump. Nobody ever really came up to me and said, hey, the way you handled that low, mid, mud in your mix changed my life.
It's never gonna happen.
But rather, when I took note of the compliments that I was getting in my mixes, it was the fact that something was interesting, something was compelling, something was moving people, moving the artist. I decided I wanted to start becoming a builder. And when we are a builder, yes, we are going to encounter problems in our mix, but there are more obstacles that are blocking us from achieving our vision. But the whole focus of our mix as a builder is we are building a world, we are building a mix, and that is going to create something far more interesting and engaging. So today we're going to hop inside the DAW. I'm going to show you a 4-pillar system that I feel you can set yourself up with inside your mix to create a system that will allow you to spend most of your time being a builder and less time being a chaser. So the 4-pillar system that we're going to create is 1, how do we properly build and understand parallels in terms of parallel processing? 2, how do we handle the center of a record? 3, how do we create fundamental effects? And 4, how do we handle auxes and channel busing? Here's my theory for building great parallels. Figure out what the raw source is doing well. So for this drum sound, we have good close mic energy. The close mics are punchy. Everything's articulate. But what we're missing is we're missing attitude and we're missing size. Turn your parallel into the regular source's anti-hero. It's the, villain to the superhero here. So if we need something that's going to give us size and raw energy, that means we're going to build something that has a very fast attack and release so that we're pushing down those transients, so we're not fighting the transients in our raw sound, and that we're getting some body and attitude around that drum. Now, something that I like to do is I like to send and create my parallels off my individual tracks, because that way, if I do want to dial anything in specifically, like if I did want a parallel to have more attack, I could only use my close mics. If I'm finding that I'm blowing up my compressor, I'm getting too much cymbal energy, which we don't need, then I can dial back the overhead here if I want. So knowing that, I want to control some frequencies going into my parallel processing. I don't need a lot of cymbal, so I'm dipping out the harsh cymbal frequencies. I'm rolling off some bottom, and I'm rolling off some top, and I'm scooping out just a little bit of the resonance of the shells. So I am shaping the tones going into my character compressor. And then with that, I just chose something very utilitarian, an 1176, all buttons in, fast attack, fast release, and let's listen. Hell yeah, right? But we're not going to stop there. Something that I am a big fan of is that I like to leave a slot for creativity. And I'm going to put a decapitator on because I really want it to feel like we are blowing up some drum room mics. it makes the top of the kit pop a little more. Because again, something that makes things feel exciting to our ear is when those upper mids are excited. That's kind of like the Chris Lord-Alge thing. You ever watch him mix? He just really digs into the upper mids of everything and just makes everything really open. Now the drums have attitude. So again, when it comes to parallel processing, when it comes to our drums, things don't need to be technically right. They need emotional impact and energy. Now let's move on and let's talk about the center of the record. I consider the center to be our kick, our snare, our bass guitar, or any sort of bass-centered instrument, and our lead vocal. I treat the bass guitar and the lead vocal right here in a very similar way. I want to make sure that I get the relationship between peak energy and body energy right, because the center of the record, we need to focus on two things, and that is attitude and presence. The attitude has to be right for the delivery of the song, and we have to make sure that there's presence there. Now, one of the greatest ways to stabilize the center of your record, at least for me, is by using compressor sandwiches. Now, with the bass, I chose to use a DBX as my fast compressor. That's going to control my peak energy, and then I love the Spectrasonics C610. So let's listen to the bass first. It sounds good. We don't need to start digging with EQs, worrying about high pass filters. We just want to dial the tone in and get the attitude right. And then once we're in the mix, if we need something then because something has become an obstacle, cool. But we don't need to sit around and try to find problems. Let's just make it now do what it needs to do to make this record special. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go with the DBX for our peak control. Now, a DBX compresses before we even see the needle moving, so I really just want to see these two lights interacting. See how it makes the growl of the bass come forward a little bit? And now comes, Mr. Heavy Lifter. We're just making sure that we're kind of leveling out the performance so that we don't lose any of the articulation. Awesome. Let's listen to the bass and drum energy that we've now created. So we're rocking hard. I mean, it sounds great, right? Like there's energy, there's attitude. Now let's just kind of quickly move down to the vocal.
It's been way too long a day.
Great voice. It's just kind of polite, right? The first thing I do is I like to pop on a de-esser. It's essentially just to kind of catch some S's. Going into my compressor sandwich, I am taking off some bottom I know I don't need. I am scooping out some mud, and I am just pushing a lot of presence. When it comes to the center of your record, the biggest mistake a lot of us make is we don't need more EQ, more processing. We need more courage. If you want to start having fun making records, have a little more courage with some of your choices, especially in the center. So here, I just want to boost this presence. So I'm not really too worried about the fact that I got a 6 dB bell. Sometimes you just need to have a little courage.
It's been way too long a day.
Now we get to the compressor sandwich. More of the typical compressor sandwich here, which is the 1176. Super fast, we're on 4, fast attack, fast release, and the LA2A.
It's been way too long a day.
The only thing to note is I am driving harder into the 1176 because it makes the vocal a little spittier. The last thing I pop on, and I don't need to do this in parallel right now, is a standard clip, which is going to give me a little bit more kind of grit and energy to that vocal.
It's been way too long a day. It's been way too long a day. It's been way too long a day.
Awesome. We can literally now just start bringing in things around that. Here's a synth. I didn't even touch the EQ. Instead, something interesting that I love doing for things that I just want to push out wide is I throw a chorus plugin on it.
It's been way too long a day.
Here, that throws it to the side. Now, let's bring in the guitars. I don't like using or reaching for EQs or compressors on my guitars to start. Instead, I like to use guitar pedals because I can get EQ in here and also get some harmonic content.
It's been way too long a day. It's been way too long a day.
So So now we're moving on to our third pillar, what we'll kind of call functional effects. You don't have to get crazy and have, 1,000 delays, 1,000 reverbs set up. What you want is you want a couple functional things to start with. And inside those functional things, I'm going to show you how you can also inject your personality. So let's go back to the drums. Let's look at this reverb. I like going off my main instrument sends because then I could tailor what I send. Too much cymbals to the reverb, I can just go pull my cymbals down, as opposed to building them off my drum bus. The reverb I start with is just a basic lexicon. You can use any reverb you like. If you're curious about how to set this one up, I have a video on drum reverbs. From there, I tailor the sound coming out of the reverb. And all we're doing here is kind of like the Abbey Road EQ. We're just rolling off all the extreme lows and all the extreme top so that we're, just getting kind of the bulk of the sound. Now, what I would encourage you to do is use the next slot or the next two slots to have some fun. I consider this the way to make things interesting. If I'm treating my reverb as a room because I didn't have a big room, then I say, hey, what kind of character can I inject into my room to make it sound unique? And the first thing I start with is maybe a delay. I used a Telray and I kind of just played with these until it created something that I liked. You could hear how it extends that snare a little bit. Then I took it a step further because that was cool, but I was looking for something, again, just a little more unique. And I love the filter freaks. It makes it slappier and pumpier, if those are words.
They are not.
Now we have something fun and something unique, a little bit of personality. Now, will somebody be able to dig that out with their ear in a mix? Probably not. I'd be lying to you. But if you were, like we said, being a little bit more courageous, you could push that up. Maybe there's a section in a song where you could just go to just that as your drum sound. You don't know, but yet I feel inspired when I do these things, and I feel more like a builder than just somebody that's looking through this mix saying, oh, do I have too much 350 in my kick drum kind of a thing. Have fun, live a little bit, do some fun things. Now, the next thing is lead vocal. For this, I just went with the dual H910, which I have a video on this, so we don't have to dig in too long. But essentially, it is two mono tracks coming off one send off the vocal. One harmonizer is pitched down, and one is pitched up. Cool. It adds a lot of width, it adds a lot of space, and it just makes that vocal feel much more natural. Now, for pillar number 4, this is our instrument aux world that we're going to build here. So how to set up auxes that are unique to you. So my drums, they feed into this drum bus, and then I have a parallel and a reverb. So all three of these are going to flow like water through a pipe down to what I call my drum collector. All the other instruments are going to flow into an instrument collector. And if there were more vocals, plus their effects flow into a vocal collector. All three of these collectors then meet up in what would be a mix bus. For me, in a regular mix, it's my vibe bus. In this YouTube video, it's this bus labeled collector. Now, why do we like auxes? It's an ecosystem for everything to live in, and it's a chance for you to actually have some sonic imprint. This is the way that I would advise you, if you're interested in me advising you on anything, on how to build auxes that can be both creative and highly functional. So the first thing we want, the key to building your own awesome custom auxes, slot number 1, something that you can use to meter or something that you can use to control volume. The second slot, totally optional, channel color. I love the Sonomus end console. If we look at this one compared to the instrument I have it on push, which is going to be driving hotter into the console. The next two slots are your auxiliary functionality. That's where you're going to want to put your EQ or your compressor. Now, if you're using just a total channel strip, great. You have your channel color, your EQ, your compressor, and basically you've kind of combined all three of these into one. And then after that, what I want you to do is I want you to create a last slot that is your unique flair. It's your fun slot. For me, I like on my drums, the Phoenix tape emulation, and I will play with different settings on this until I find the right flavor. since we are now masters at building these things, we know here's our volume for the instruments. I'm going Neve. For this, my functionality in the next two channels, I will typically start with a multiband. And if I feel that I need to do something, I'll engage the multiband. So for the instrument collector here, I'm just making sure I'm taming a little bit of the low mids. That helps clear out some room for my snare. Sometimes I may automate that on and off for choruses if I need things to feel even more hollowed out. For the instrument collector in the fun slot, I have the SPL Vitalizer. A lot of times I will actually have this on my Sheen bus, and I'll automate this on and off for the whole mix, and I'll actually have the mix head here, which is essentially kind of like a tape emulator. Same concept for the vocals. The multiband here, instead of rolling off, what I like to do is push this down.
It's been way too long a day.
And then I set up a multiband here to control a little bit of the low mids so that things don't feel boxy. And then this is basically a de-esser. Super fast tack, super fast release up in that area just to knock down anything else in case it's, creating a little bit of a buildup of sibilance. For the fun on this one, sometimes I'll use Clairphonics by Kush, which is really fun. You can use anything. You put a filter freak on there if you want, or a tremolator. I mean, live if you want. And that's essentially the four pillars. That's how we build an aux so that we are able to, one, create an ecosystem for our instruments to live, pull things together, create essentially VCAs for us to be able to manipulate full-on instrument groups or large sections of the mix, and then last but not least, be able to imprint a little bit of our own sonic personality. All right, so the moral of today's video is to stop chasing perfection. When I stopped trying to make everything in my mix perfect and left that alone and focused on engagement, focused on emotion, focused on being a builder, starting with a vision and only looking to remove the obstacles in the mix that were preventing me from achieving my vision. So I hope you have fun. I hope this video encourages you to take some chances, to let go a little bit and stop stressing about over EQing everything, and rather looking and saying, what in this mix is interesting to me? What in this mix is something that would be fun to feature? Because again, the absence of problems doesn't mean the presence of magic. The only way you engage and jump and add presence and magic into your mix is by having a vision for it and then going out and creating that vision. Okay, my friends, see you next time.